In the world of cyberpunk, corporations and mega corporations rule by force and intimidation. They're ruthless and will do anything to hold on to their power and to increase their strength, even if that means launching an outright war. Even though now corporations have their personal armies due to the corporate nature of business, before everything had to be kept covert. In the very beginning, corporations would hire terrorist groups to strike at their enemy targets. But in order to have better direct control, corporations decided it would be more beneficial to create their own groups that resemble terrorist groups, but are entirely on the corporation's secret payroll. The first corporate war was between megacorporation Euro Business Machines and Orbital Air, a smaller corporation, but just as fierce and ruthless when it comes to business dominance. Euro Business Machines, or EBM for short, main headquarters is located in Hamburg, and is the largest computer and high-tech equipment manufacturer in the world, making it one of the most powerful megacorporations in existence. In the late 1900s, EBM performed the greatest free market hostile takeover in history. EBM forced a merger with many prominent computer companies around the globe, consolidating EBM's power on the world stage. Orbital Air's headquarters is located in Nairobi, Kenya, but it has regional offices all around the world, including the Johnson Orbital facility in low Earth orbit. Orbital Air is a very important corporation in the 21st century. With the exception of a couple of governments, Orbital Air monopolizes all orbital lifting capability, so all companies, big and small, rely on them to transport cargo out of the gravity well. In fact, the Eurospace Agency's Crystal Tower L-5 colony, a massive orbital hotel complex for the ultra-rich, would be out of business without them. Orbital Air also specializes and is responsible for all passenger transport to Earth's orbit and the maintenance of commercial and private orbital facilities. The first corporate war was due to a deal gone wrong. However, the deal wasn't between EBM and Orbital Air. EBM attempted a large buyout of Transworld Airlines, a failing corporation. Even though Transworld Airlines needed a buyout, the CEO of TWA let the deal fall through. The reason being, Orbital Air, also interested in buying TWA, blocked EMD's attempted buyout. It was nothing personal, it was only business. Orbital Air wanted to buy TWA mostly for their air traffic control facilities. When EMD realized why the buyout fell through, EBM went on a rampage and vowed to do everything in its power to keep Orbital Air from purchasing Transworld Airlines. EBM hired terrorists to kidnap Orbital Air's negotiation team before they were able to meet with TWA, but the terrorists failed and were unable to successfully complete their mission. That's the thing when using actual terrorists. They can sometimes be undependable. After finding out who was really behind the attack, Orbital Air hired DataTake, an up-and-coming technology company based out of Cupertino, California, to help them in the conflict. DataTake unleashed a massive sneak attack on EBM's web infrastructure. DataTake unleashed its hackers as part of a large-scale net attack, but EMD is no slouch. After all, they're the biggest manufacturers of high-end computer components in the world. EBM was able to repel the attack, forcing DataTake out of the war. Both companies had struck at each other, and it could have ended at that. But in the world of cyberpunk, power means everything, and even the notion that a corporation is showing weakness can cause the sharks to go on a frenzy, and maybe even start to take a nibble. After defeating DataTake in all-out cyber warfare, EBM started an all-out assault, both physically and technologically, against Orbital Air and TWA. After all, they both had a hand on why the original deal fell apart. Both sides fought viciously, and waged war using cyber attacks, piracy, and terrorism using proxies from third world countries. Although there were constant attacks on each other, it wasn't until the first major battle that took place when the tides of war began to change. The first major battle took place when Orbital Air attempted to capture EBM's space station. The station is manned by 30 researchers and 10 soldiers. After many lives were lost, Orbital Air was successful in its mission, and it was a major blow to EBM. But it wasn't until the second largest battle when things turned towards the worst for EBM. Commandos employed by Orbital Air were able to attack the compound of EBM CEO and eventually successfully capture him, forcing the CEO to surrender to Orbital Air. Both EMD and Orbital Air were denounced by the European Space Agency. They demanded that no corporation be allowed to fight against each other in low orbit. Nonetheless, after the war ended, business went on as usual for both corporations. In fact, the first corporate war was now used as an example for corporations. All the lines that were previously drawn in the sand had been erased. This showed corporations that physical attacks, cyber attacks, military-style warfare is a viable option for business practices. Not only viable, but necessary. As a result, corporations and many corporations took this opportunity to create a full-scale military branch for their businesses. Right now, Orbital Air has 140,000 employees, 10,000 troops, and 700 coverts. Electronic Business Machines has 1 million employees, 20,000 troops, and 2,000 coverts. Besides the loss of life, property, and stock share, the first corporate war cost both EMD and Orbital Air hundreds of millions of dollars. But in the world of cyberpunk, that's just the cost of doing business.